You know, there's two ways to get an existing project into a GitHub repository. There's an easy way and there's the proper way. I want to show you both ways to do it, and I'm pretty sure I can make a compelling argument that says the easy way is actually the better way in a number of circumstances. Hi, I'm Cameron McKenzie. I'm the editor-in-chief over at theserverside.com, and last year I wrote an article about moving an existing project into a GitHub repo, and I talked about the proper way to do it, but I felt guilty because I knew all along that there was actually a much easier way to do it. And I want to show you that easy way. As you can see, I've got a big project on my file system. You can see Gradle and Maven and Python and package.json files for JavaScript and Node applications. And I want to get that big project up to a repository in GitHub. I've also got my GitHub account open here, and I'm going to create a brand new repository, and I'm going to call it Push It Easily. I'm going to make it public, and I'm going to add a README file. This is pivotal. This easy cheat only works if there's some sort of a git commit history in your repository. So make sure you add that README file. You can add anything else that you want. I don't care. But this actually simulates a situation where you're adding a project to a repository that already has files in it. The proper way assumes there's no files in it. So this is actually probably closer to a real world situation than the proper way to do it. Now, you'll notice there's a beautiful green button over there, and I can't help press a beautiful green button, and that gives me my Git URL. I then need to find somewhere to clone this repository, and I got a folder called repos, and that just seems like a smart place to clone a repository. So I'm going to do that git clone command. I'm going to paste in that URL. Looks like it didn't get copied properly, so I'm going to do that again. I got to work on my copy and paste skills. I got to take that off my LinkedIn resume until I really nail that down. But you can see the Push It Easily folder created. That's got the .git folder in it, which shows you that there's a Git repository there. That's the binary embodiment of Git, of your branches, of your remotes right there. And now the question is, how do I get that big project into this Git repo? Well, can you copy and paste? Right? Control A, Control C, just copy all of those files. Maybe make sure that you're copying hidden files too. I don't know if you've got hidden files in your project. It seems weird to me, but people do weird stuff. And then just paste it in. Can you do that? Like, can you paste your files into your Git repository? Now what do? Well, you do what you normally do. You just go into that folder, so cd push star, and then git add dot. Git commit -m, adding project to GitHub repo. And then you know where this is going, git push origin. Done. Boom. All of our files have now been pushed up to GitHub. If I go over here, do a refresh, boom. Main, src, test, Java, Gradle build files, Maven POM files, React and Angular package.json files, python.py files. I bet you if I go into this src folder, I might even see some crazy Ruby files. There it is in that crazy main folder. So, I mean, you tell me, does it get any easier than that? Now let's see what the proper academic way to add files to a repository is. So let's now create a brand new repository. I'm going to delete that folder there, delete that git bash shell. I'm going to create a brand new repository. Now this repository is going to be totally blank, and it's going to be called Push It Properly. I'm always pushing it. There we go. Push it properly. It's public, but fight every temptation to add a README or git ignore or a license or anything like this. This has to be a naked repository, as unchristian as that sounds. So we create the repository, and look, it even says, look, okay, you created a repository. If you actually want to add a project or connect to from your local machine to this, you got to do git init, git add, git commit, git branch, git remote, git push -u origin. It's nasty. But just because it's nasty, it doesn't mean we're not going to do it. So let's do it the proper way. I've gone into my big project. I'm going to open the git bash shell there, and then I'm going to issue that git init command, git init, better than getting out of it, get init. We see the .git folder created there. Now what is next? It says do a git add. So git add dot, it says do a git add readme because I think it wants to create a readme file first or something like that. I don't know. But we do the git add. That now stages all the files. Now we need to do a git commit -m, add to remote GitHub, adding this project to a remote GitHub. All our files are committed. We're not there yet. We can't push, right? Because we've got to add our remote origin. Okay, so here's this command, git remote add origin, HTTPS, blah, 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 blah. Now that connects our local repository to the remote GitHub repository in terms of allowing our local repository to know where to push to, but no files have been pushed up yet. So the next step is to actually push up. Now, the other problem here is notice I'm on the master branch. When I did the git init, it created a master branch, not main. And the instructions actually say to work with the main branch. So like it's just more things to mess people up. I've actually seen on the message boards, lots of people saying they can't move a project into GitHub and they're getting errors because they used master instead of main. We're on the master branch. I'm going to do a git push origin. Git push origin. Got to do a -u in there, -u, -me, -origin. And then what branch are we pushing up? We're on master, so we're going to push master up, not main. Okay. Which one was easier? I don't know. I'd click refresh and the files are here. So it worked, but that wasn't easier. That seemed like a lot more work. And it's also problematic. Okay, and I'm gonna show you how it can become problematic. I'm gonna close this window and I'm gonna delete that .git folder. And that's essentially now removing my local project from Git. The Git and the linking to the server is no longer happening. So I'm also going to delete this repository up on the server as well, so I can start off with a brand new clean repo with nothing in it, getting back to that nakedness that they talk about in the Bible. And here we go. Now we've deleted that repository. Now let's create it again. So push it properly. It's going to be public. Now I'm going to add a README here. So now things are a little bit different. And I think this is simulating what more people run into, where they want to add files to a project that may already have files in it. So I'm adding that README. I'm creating the repository. I'm going to click that beautiful green button again because I just can't fight the temptation. We're going to need that in a moment. And then we're going to do those basic steps again. So over here, I'm going to go into my big project. I deleted that Git folder. So I need to do that git init again. Get init, get out of it. Okay, you see that .git folder magically appear. Now we need to do the git add. Git add dot, so that stages all of the files. Now we need to do a git commit -m, add project to existing GitHub repo. The commit is done. Now what do we need to do? Now we need to add the remote. So git remote add origin and paste in that URL. Now notice we're on the master branch here and the server only has a main branch. So I'm gonna have to create a master branch over here despite the fact that I prefer not to. But we're kind of boxed into this. But now at least if we're on the master branch locally, we want to push to the master branch on the server. That's going to exist. And that's, again, that's probably more the case where you're copying files into a branch that exists. So now we've got that working here. And now, according to the instructions, I just have to do git push-u origin master. And if I do this, git push-u origin master, watch what happens. It actually rejects the push. It actually says, look, you've got a different commit history locally than you do on the server, and we can't resolve that. We don't know about this commit that you have, and then this commit that we have, and then all of this weirdness that you're trying to push into. So you end up getting a rejection here, and nobody likes rejection. The only thing we can do is force ourselves on it. And again, forcing ourselves on it just, again, just doesn't sound right to be forcing yourself on anybody. But we got to do it. We got to do a git push -u -f to force to origin and force our master branch onto the server there. And now this runs and it works. And now if we go over to GitHub and do a little bit of a refresh, we can see that our files have gone up there. But again, I don't like it. I don't like having to do that force. I worry about that divergent git commit history between the two. I think just doing the clone, copying your files over, doing a git add, doing a git commit, and then doing a git push, I think it just makes everything a lot easier to work with. Now, your mileage may vary on that, but I think that is a much better way of doing it. So again, please let me know if I'm missing something here. Like, let me know if there's a step that I'm missing or this causes some problems, but I think this actually solves a lot of problems taking the easy approach. And so there you go. Now, before I let you go, I just wanted to say, I'm kind of well known on YouTube for creating short tutorials that tackle a very specific or difficult problem with Git. So deleting repositories, doing merges, fighting with merge conflicts, doing Git flow, like all of those things, very short tutorials. But I've kind of branched off into creating some longer form tutorials. So if you're interested, I've got a bunch of tutorials on things like how to use GitHub Desktop. And I go from start to finish on GitHub Desktop, talking about branching, talking about collaborative work with pushes and pulls, talking about doing rebases, talking about all of the stuff that you can do with GitHub Desktop. I've done something similar with SourceTree and Bitbucket and GitLab. So I just want to encourage you, go check out those long form tutorials. There might be something in there that you might find valuable. Also, if you enjoy my tutorials, why don't you suggest them to some of your friends too? I'd like to see a little bit more traffic on the site. One of the funny things is with the short form tutorials, Git downgrades them. So Git can only put an ad into a video, not Git, YouTube can only put an ad into a video after the 8-minute mark. So they don't like promoting videos that are longer than 8 minutes long. That's why you can get some really garbage 9-minute videos that don't tell you anything. And you have to really hunt for the short 2-minute videos that tell you exactly what you want. So I'm trying to play with that YouTube algorithm a little bit and creating some more long form stuff. So please check that out. Oh, and one other thing before we go. You may have noticed that some of the books just disappeared from the background there. That's because I just wanted to suggest them. I don't know if you know this or not, but Springfield in The Simpsons is actually based on a small town in Toronto named Pickering, just outside of Toronto. I wrote a book called Pickering is Springfield. It's available on Amazon. I would definitely suggest you check that out. I also got a book on Hibernate and JPA, a couple of other books on Java programming too, but if you're in the Java space, please check those out. Now, the other thing too is if you're talking about Git, you're doing development. If you're doing development, you're most likely Agile, and if you're Agile, you're most likely using Spring. And one of the freelancers that's been doing a lot of work for us over on the server side, named Darcy DeClute, Scrumptious on Twitter, she wrote this Scrum Master certification guide. Can't recommend it enough. Please go check that out. So if you're interested in Agile, you're interested in Scrum, you want to learn more about Scrum, even advance your career, as I said, that's a great resource to pick up. Also, I started to tweet a little bit more on X. That's right, it's not Twitter anymore, on X. So if you're on X, look me up at Cameron MCNZ and follow along all of my personal antics. I am the editor-in-chief at theserverside.com, so we got lots of tutorials on Git, GitHub, SourceTree, DevOps, TortoiseGit, Git Kraken, Maven, Java, Python, you name it. And of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, why don't you subscribe on YouTube? Maybe give a like, but definitely subscribe. It'd be appreciated.